I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be see yourself as a high-value person. Well, I've got an email here from a guy that I coached. I did a phone session with him a few weeks back, and he was trying to get his ex back, and some interesting things have happened when he started applying the things that you've probably heard me talk about in other videos on this subject. And now he's starting to get some positive reaction from her. But before we get into it, I got a quote I'd like to share with you because it's really important regarding this particular topic. Before anyone else will perceive you as a high value, as a person who has high value, you have to act, think, and believe as if you are a high value person in your own eyes. People tend to see us as we see ourselves. If you have a negative self-image, others will see this, sense this, and treat you accordingly. Since your belief is so strong, your actions, words, and deeds will communicate your belief for you. It doesn't matter if that belief is accurate or not. Therefore, make a conscious choice to see yourself as awesome, even if you have to fake it until you make it. Your mind does not know the difference between thoughts or imagination. So let's get into his email. He says, "Hey coach, it's the office relationship guy, and we had a phone coaching session a few weeks back. My ex and I work on the same floor, and more than 2 weeks back, she told me that she wants nothing to do with me after I did all the fuck-ups in the world that one can do to turn a woman off, such as being needy, clingy, stalkerish, abusive, the drama queen, and begging her and her friend for taking me back after 2 breakups happened between us in the past 6 months. So I decided that I would walk away and never ever look back and treat her as I treat all colleagues in my office. In the 4 days after the breakup, she called me twice to know how I was. Both times I kept the conversation very light and acted as if nothing ever happened." It's so fascinating that he brings this up because I had one of the girls I wrote about in my book. We were going through this period where she put me in friend zone, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I was like, no thanks. And so I walked away, and she had a bunch of stuff over at my house. It was in my garage because she was in between, when we were together, she was in between moving, and so I let her keep some crap in my garage. And so, like the day she was packing, she had friends come over, and she unloaded all the crap that was in my garage and into these self-storage containers. And then afterwards, she's, a couple days after that, she's calling me to see how I was. Because what she was really trying to do is trying to investigate to see how I really felt about the situation, if it bothered me, because my attitude was like, fuck it, I'm over it. And I had to take it or leave it kind of attitude, and obviously it confused her a little bit. And as human beings, we always tend to feel better about a breakup if we feel like the other person is somehow hurting or it's bothering them more than it bothers us. And the best thing you can do in those situations is to act like it really doesn't matter to you anymore, because in your mind, as far as you're concerned, she's part of your past. She's no longer part of your present. So he says both times she turned down to meet and didn't call for a week. So in other words, she reached out to you, you asked her to do something, she turned you down, and then she stopped calling. He says, during those 7 to 8 days of no contact, she tried to get my attention by being with other dudes or coming to places in the office where she knew I would be with the guy she was leaning on when our relationship started to get sour. So she's using some other dude that you work with to try to make you jealous, try to get a rise out of you. He says, when we were together, I used to get really pissed off because she used to use this guy to get my attention, and I used to fight with her over this, but now I didn't give a shit, and I treat her as if she doesn't even exist for me. He says, after the breakup, I have met, dated, and hooked up with 3 women, and I feel that I'm getting my mojo back, but deep down I feel empty and hurt. That's just part of the natural grieving process. But, I mean, it takes a lot of balls to do that, especially when you work with your girlfriend, considering how you were so needy and chasing this girl and begging and pleading, which obviously got you nowhere, and now you've just your behavior is just completely different. It's just amazing. The difference that makes a difference is indifference. You're going to go on about your life, and you gave it your best shot and fuck it. He says, last Sunday I was on a date with a woman and my ex called me up to 6 times in 6 hours after no contact for a whole entire week. And she sent 4 texts to know if I was okay and that she was worried about me. And she finally texted me, if you don't want to talk, let me know because I'm getting really worried about you. He says, I didn't respond to any of her texts or calls that night. Good job, because you're on a date with another girl. As far as you're concerned, the best way to be is act as if she's part of your past. He says, the next day when I called her, she was mad at me and accused me of ignoring her, and I told her I was with a friend, which is always the best thing to say. I even say that in my book. And of course, she wanted to know who I was with, but I brushed the question aside, but she insisted again, so I told her I was with this chick. She was totally mum for the rest of the conversation, almost cried on the phone. Yeah, because you let her know that no longer are you going to act like a little weak bitch chasing after her like a little fucking puppy dog. You told her what you wanted. She said no. You walked away. You've been acting indifferent because you get to a point where you're just like, fuck it. And it's an amazing place for a guy who goes from running after and chasing after a girl and pleading with her to where you just basically, you completely change and you're just like, fuck it. I'm moving on with my life. I'm over it. This is part of my past as far as I'm concerned, and it has a really powerful effect on her. He says, but I kept the conversation very light and told her to keep in touch, and I'm totally surprised by her behavior. Because here's what's happened. He's asked her to do something twice when she's reached out, when he's walked away, and both times she shot him down. And now he's on a date with another girl, and he's admitted it to her after she kept pressing him for it. Because what you do is you try to get them to go out twice when they are in the ones initiating contact. Because when you walk away, I mean, you walk and you never look back. And so what the woman's going to realize is that, and if you're a gal using this, the other person's going to realize that the only way something is going to happen between the two of you is if they make it happen. Because as far as you're concerned, you're on with your life. In this particular case, you're on a date with another chick. And obviously, if this other guy that she was with was really that great of a replacement, she wouldn't give a shit. She would have moved on, but she's reaching out to you. He says, so his question is she, number one, hoping that I start chasing her again and beg her to take me back like I've done in the past? Well, I'd say your behavior is definitely confusing her because now she's starting to reach out and pursue you. And the idea is you don't want to ignore the texts or the phone calls, but you take your time. If you're on a date, if she calls you after 6 or 7 o'clock at night, let it go to voicemail and you get back to her the next day. And then she's going to pray, where were you? Always with a friend. And automatically when you say that to a woman, she's going to assume that you're with a new chick. You're with her replacement in essence. He says, number 2, is she contemplating about a patch-up with me? Remember, I've said numerous times, it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And you see how amazing, just a matter of a couple of weeks, his complete change in his behavior has now totally confused her. And now where she really didn't give a shit, and she's too busy and she had all the power, now you walk away as if it doesn't mean anything, and now she starts to care again. It's amazing how powerful this is. And this is where the power starts to shift and come back into the guy's court, which is where it needs to rest anyways if attraction is going to happen. So he says, number 3, or she just wants my attention so that she can just satisfy her ego. Well, what's happening is now she really is starting to fear that, wow, I may lose this guy to another girl, and he seems to be like he's totally moved on. And she's reaching out to you, and you're not asking around, because I talked about that in my book as well. With this particular gal that I was talking about earlier, it was the same thing. I asked her to do something. Oh, I'm busy, I can't. I was like, all right, whatever. Call if you change your mind. And a week went by, 14 days, 12 days, whatever it happened to be. She called me again. Same thing. Hey, how are you? We talked for a couple of minutes. I was like, hey, well, I got to run. It was nice chatting with you. Keep in touch. Because like I say, you ask her twice when she reaches out, and both times she shoots you down. You never ever bring it up again unless she brings it up. And so like what happened with me, another, 4 or 5 days went by. She called me. It was the same thing. We chatted. Hey, nice hearing from you. I got to run. Keep in touch. And I didn't bring up getting together or nothing. Then I hung up, and like 10 minutes later, my receptionist called into my office and said, so-and-so is on the phone. And I started smiling, and she says, hey, I wanted to see what your schedule's like so we can get together and go to Disney and do Around the World, which doing Around the World at Epcot was where basically you have one beer at each place that serves beer, and the goal was you try to have a beer at each place and get around. It's called Around the World. In other words, you go to every different country, and because not every one of them has drinks that you can drink there. And so she brought this up because we had talked about it in the past, but every time I tried to make plans with her to do it, oh, I'm busy, I can't. And then plus on top of that, her daughter and I, she wanted me to take her for the day, but she kept, oh, I got to check my, and she just never got around to it. And now, so not only was she making a date for her and I to hang out, now she was making a date for me and her daughter to do something together on a particular day. And so I made both those dates, but she was the one that brought it up, and she had her schedule out, and she wanted to make sure that I was penciling it in. And that's the power of walking away and never looking back. Because when she realized after you've asked her out twice and both times she says no, and then she continues to call you and text you, you chat, you're nice, you're charming, you're playful with her, but you don't ever bring up getting together, and then you leave the conversation after only a few moments, she starts to realize that you're not asking her to do anything anymore. And you've walked away. And so she will realize that unless she makes something happen, that you're making zero effort from that point forward because you're fucking over it. So he says, what do you make of her actions, Coach? Is there a chance that I can get her back? And I'd say there's a good chance. But at this point, all you have to do is same thing. Keep doing what you're doing. Call her, text her back the next day, because she's going to think you're on a date with another girl. And this is great that you've had the balls to go out and do that instead of sulking over the fact that the breakup happened. And so the only way you should mention or try to make plans with her is if she brings it up first. Because if she brings it up first, then it's something that she wants to do. It's her idea. And you're like, sure, I'd love to see you. When are you free to get together? And you make definite plans and you say, great, I'll see you then. And you get off the phone. And her attitude will be completely different. And if when you're on the date, if she brings those things up, just say, let's not worry about the past. Obviously, we both have made mistakes. Let's just enjoy our evening together. Hang out, have fun, hook up. That's all you need to focus on. And from that point forward, you won't have to do anything. You'll go out, you'll hang out, you'll have fun, you'll hook up. Since she was the one that brought it up, it's her idea. And then if she calls you a few days later, or whatever, a week later or the next day, hey, I'd love to see you again. When are you free to get together? She'll be open to making dates. And then so what it also does, it starts to teach her that when she reaches out to you, you're making the next date. And that's all you have to do. But you got to focus on hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. And that's it. Even if she talks about getting back together and this and that, just let's not complicate things, honey. Let's just see where it goes. Let's just have some fun and enjoy each other. I don't want to talk about the past because it's water under the bridge. Let's just move forward and have a great time. And that's the best way to handle it when you're in a situation like this. So if you've got a challenge, whether it's a life challenge or a quality of life issue, or you're having problems with a girlfriend or your wife or a girl you're trying to attract or re-attract into your life, and you want to get my help personally, the quickest way is to go to my website, click the products tab, which will be at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for booking a paid phone coaching session with yours truly. And I will talk to you soon.